The orbital city of Celestia Prime floated like a jewel in the darkness of space. The lights from its many towers formed a bright halo that could be seen from far away. Inside the Grand Nebula Hall, the most elegant event of the season was taking place. People from every corner of the galaxy had arrived wearing shining clothes and expensive smiles. The music was soft but clear, filling the hall with a rhythm that made every step sound special. Ava stood near the crystal balcony at the edge of the ballroom. She was wearing a simple silver dress that reflected the lights around her. She looked like she belonged there, but she didn't feel like it. Her hands were shaking slightly, and she had to remind herself to breathe slowly. She wasn't here because she wanted to be. She was here because she had to prove something to herself. Her ex-boyfriend Rowan was at the bar across the room. Even without turning around, she could feel his eyes on her. He had always been the kind of man who liked control. Control of situations, of conversations, even of people. And for a long time she had allowed him to have that control. Not anymore. Tonight she would stand in the same room with him and he would not have power over her. But it wasn't easy. She glanced at the reflection on the glass wall. Rowan was leaning casually against the counter talking to someone, but his gaze returned to her again and again. His confident smirk told her he thought she was still the same person she had been months ago. She wanted to prove him wrong. Around her, couples were dancing. The light from the giant chandelier above made everything look soft and golden. The music shifted into a slow waltz, and Ava felt everyone moving closer to the dance floor. She took a small step back, unsure what to do. If she stood alone, Rowan would see it as weakness. If she left, he would think she was running. She needed to do something unexpected. Then she noticed him. A man was standing at the far end of the room. Unlike everyone else, he wasn't surrounded by a crowd. He wore a black suit, neat but not too loud. His posture was calm, strong, and completely unbothered by the noise and the glitter. People gave him space without even realizing it. There was something about him. A quiet confidence, a stillness that didn't need to shout to be noticed. His name was Cassian Vero, though Ava didn't know that yet. She had never met him before. To her, he was just a stranger, but something in the way he carried himself made her believe, just for a second, that he could be her shield. Someone Rowan wouldn't expect. She took a deep breath. "Don't overthink," she whispered to herself. Her heels clicked softly against the floor as she walked toward him. Each step felt like stepping out of her past. She kept her chin up, trying to look calm even though her heart was beating faster with every step. When she reached him, he turned his head slightly to look at her. His eyes were sharp but not cold. He didn't smile, but he didn't push her away either. His presence was like quiet gravity, steady and strong. "Could you dance with me?" Ava asked, her voice soft but clear. Then she added, almost in a whisper, "My ex is watching from the bar." For a moment she thought he might refuse. He didn't know her. He had no reason to help, but Cassian simply extended his hand, smooth and sure, as if this kind of request didn't surprise him at all. "Of course," he said. Ava placed her hand in his. His touch was steady, not too tight, not too loose. It was the kind of hold that made her feel grounded. He guided her to the center of the dance floor. As the music swelled, their steps matched easily, almost as if they had practiced before. Ava didn't know much about dancing, but Cassian's movements were so calm and certain that she just followed without hesitation. All around them, the crowd seemed to notice. People turned their heads. Some whispered quietly to each other, not because Ava was dancing, but because Cassian was. No one expected to see him dance. The truth was, Cassian was not a man people approached casually. Behind that composed appearance was a power most people didn't understand fully. He was the quiet storm of Celestia Prime. Some called him the boss of the shadows, the one who made the city's hidden wheels turn. But Ava didn't know any of this. To her, he was simply someone who had agreed to help without asking questions. Rowan's expression from the bar changed the moment Cassian placed his hand on Ava's waist. His confident smirk faded. His drink remained untouched. He knew who Cassian was. Everyone who played dangerous games in Celestia did. But Ava remained blissfully unaware, smiling nervously as she spun. Cassian's voice broke through the music softly. "You're nervous," she looked up at him. "A little." "Don't be," he said, as if it was the simplest thing in the world. The way he said it wasn't commanding. It wasn't dismissive. It was reassuring. Ava felt her shoulders relax. For the first time that night, she didn't feel like someone's target. She felt safe. "Thank you," she said quietly. He didn't ask why she needed help. He didn't ask what her story was. He simply guided her through the dance. But Cassian's mind was far from calm. He had seen the man at the bar before. Rowan wasn't just any guest. Cassian had a sharp memory for faces, and that face had been involved in deals he had kept an eye on, not important enough to be a threat, but enough to know trouble when it stared. The music shifted again, blending into a softer melody. Ava and Cassian moved effortlessly, as if the world around them had faded. Their dance wasn't romantic. It was quiet, strong, strategic. But in that quietness, something unexpected grew. Ava began to smile for real. Not because she was pretending, but because for once she wasn't thinking about Rowan. Above them, the artificial stars of the Grand Nebula Hall shone brighter. Around them, people slowed their steps to watch. Ava didn't notice the stares. She didn't notice Rowan's tense jaw. She only noticed the way Cassian's hand guided her through every step without hesitation. Rowan shifted at the bar. His confidence cracked just enough for those who watched closely to notice. Cassian didn't even look in his direction. He didn't need to. His calm was louder than any challenge. Ava tilted her head slightly, curious. "You don't seem nervous." Cassian's lips curved into the smallest hint of a smile. "I don't get nervous easily," she laughed softly. "I wish I could say the same." "You're doing fine," he replied. The music rose toward its final note, and Cassian spun her gently. For a brief second, Ava forgot where she was. She forgot Rowan's watchful gaze. She felt like she belonged on that dance floor. She felt strong. When the music ended, Cassian released her hand, but only slightly. The applause from around the room filled the air. Ava blinked in surprise, realizing they had drawn more attention than she had expected. She took a small step back, still breathing quickly. "I didn't mean to make a scene." Cassian tilted his head. "You didn't make a scene. You made a statement," Ava frowned softly. "What kind of statement?" He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "That you are not alone." She wasn't sure what he meant, but something in his tone made her believe it was more than just a kind remark. It was a promise. A quiet one, but a promise all the same. Around the edges of the room, whispers spread. People who knew Cassian recognized the significance of what they had just witnessed. Cassian Vero didn't dance with anyone, yet tonight he had chosen to. Ava had no idea what kind of ripple she had just created. Rowan was still at the bar, his jaw tight, his hand gripping his glass a little too hard. But Cassian still didn't look his way. He didn't have to. His presence alone was enough to change the atmosphere. People like Rowan depended on fear to control others. But people like Cassian didn't use fear, they simply were. And that was far more powerful. As the music for the next song began, Cassian stepped aside. "Would you like to keep dancing?" Ava hesitated. For the first time in a long while, she had choices. Real choices. She smiled faintly. "Maybe later." He nodded once, as if he respected her answer more than she expected anyone to. Then he quietly returned to his place at the edge of the room. But something had shifted. Rowan's confidence no longer filled the space. Ava's silence no longer felt weak. And somewhere in the golden light of the Nebula Hall, a new story had just begun. One she hadn't planned, but one she couldn't walk away from anymore. The music in the Grand Nebula Hall continued, but for Ava, the world had changed after that one dance. She stood near the balcony again, though this time she didn't feel small or nervous. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was calm. The man in the black suit, Cassian, had quietly returned to his corner, but the effect of their dance still filled the air. People were still whispering in low voices. A few guests even looked at her with curious eyes, as if she had done something extraordinary without even realizing it. Ava didn't understand why one dance had made everyone react this way. She only knew she felt safe, stronger than she had in a long time. But Rowan hadn't moved. He was still at the bar, his posture tight, his stare fixed on her and Cassian. He was the kind of person who didn't like losing control. And tonight, he had lost some of it without saying a single word. Ava felt his eyes, but this time she didn't shrink away. She lifted her chin slightly, something she never used to do before. She didn't want to run anymore. Cassian, standing near the shadows at the side of the hall, noticed everything. He noticed Rowan's body language. He noticed the way some people at the bar were pretending not to watch but were paying very close attention. He noticed how one dance had drawn a silent line in the room. Cassian was a man who built his life around reading people. He didn't need to ask questions. He just saw things others tried to hide. It was why the most powerful people on Celestia Prime respected him, even if they never said it out loud. He sipped a simple drink and waited. Quiet power didn't need to shout. The Grand Nebula Gala continued with speeches, toasts, and new guests arriving from different parts of the orbital city. The floating lights above shimmered softly, creating the illusion of a sky full of moving stars. Soft music flowed through the room like water. But under all that beauty, there was an invisible current, a quiet tension no one could ignore anymore. Ava stood near one of the tall crystal columns when an older woman with elegant silver hair approached her. "You're quite brave," the woman said with a kind smile. Ava blinked in surprise. "Me? Yes, dear." Most people wouldn't ask him for a dance. "Who?" Ava asked, confused. The woman tilted her head toward Cassian, who was still standing calmly near the edge of the room. Ava's heartbeat quickened a little. "He was just being kind," the woman gave a quiet laugh. "Cassian Vero is not a man who dances for kindness, child. People wait years to speak to him, and tonight he danced with you." Ava froze. The name felt heavy, as if she had heard it somewhere before but couldn't place it. "Cassian Vero?" The woman nodded. "Yes, the most powerful man on Celestia Prime. If you have his attention, then you've already changed something." Ava's breath caught. She didn't know what to say. She hadn't asked him to dance because of power. She had asked because she was scared of Rowan's eyes. Because she needed a moment to breathe. She didn't want to be at the center of anything. But now she was. The woman gave her a knowing look. "Be careful, dear. Power notices power, even when you don't realize you have it." Then the woman walked away, leaving Ava with her thoughts. Across the room, Rowan was growing restless. He had come here expecting to make her feel small again, to remind her of his control. But the moment she stepped onto that dance floor with Cassian Vero, everything had changed. His usual confidence didn't feel the same anymore. People weren't looking at him. They were looking at them. And Rowan knew enough about Cassian to understand what it meant to be seen in his company. He didn't approach Ava. He didn't dare approach Cassian. But his silence was louder than his words used to be. Cassian watched from a distance. He didn't interfere, not yet. He didn't need to. Some battles are won with silence, not noise. Later that night, the music softened again as the event slowly reached its quiet, glowing peak. The city lights beyond the glass walls flickered like distant stars. Ava stepped outside onto the wide balcony that overlooked the void of space. She needed air. She needed space to think. She didn't realize Cassian had followed her until he spoke. "You don't like crowds," he said simply. She turned to find him standing a few steps behind her, hands in his pockets, his posture relaxed but sharp at the same time. "I used to," she admitted softly, "but not anymore." Cassian moved closer, but not too close. He kept a respectful distance. "You looked like someone who wanted to disappear earlier," she laughed weakly. "I kind of did." "But you didn't," Cassian said. Ava looked out at the stars. "No, I didn't." For a moment, silence hung between them, not the uncomfortable kind, but a steady, clear silence that felt safe. She could hear the soft hum of the station around them, the faint echo of music from inside, the whisper of space beyond the glass. She finally turned toward him. "You didn't have to say yes when I asked you to dance." "I know," Cassian said. "Then why did you?" He tilted his head slightly. "Because you asked." She blinked at his simple answer. "That's it?" His lips curved slightly. Sometimes that's enough. Back inside, whispers were growing. Cassian's decision to dance was not something people would forget. In a place like Celestia Prime, small actions carried heavy weight. A single look could shift alliances. A single dance could redraw lines. Ava didn't know that yet. But many others in the room did. Several guests who had ignored her earlier now looked at her differently. Not with pity, not with mockery, with curiosity, some with respect. It was a strange feeling, and Ava wasn't sure she liked it. Cassian, on the other hand, was used to being watched. He didn't care for whispers or glances. He cared only about truth, about the lines between fear and courage. When they re-entered the ballroom together, the room shifted again. Rowan, still near the bar, straightened his back unconsciously. People moved aside as Cassian walked past, not because he asked, but because that was how power worked in places like this. Ava could feel the difference too. She didn't know the full story of who Cassian was, but she could feel the weight of his presence. It was quiet but undeniable, like a storm waiting behind a calm sea. A man in a dark gray suit approached Cassian as they walked through the crowd. His voice was low, almost respectful. "Mr. Vero, should we?" Cassian raised a hand slightly, and the man fell silent immediately. No. That one word, calm and steady, was enough to end the conversation. Ava watched in quiet amazement. She had never seen someone who could control a situation without raising their voice. Cassian turned back to her. "You should enjoy the rest of your night." She tilted her head. "Why does it feel like it's not just a night anymore?" Cassian didn't answer directly. Instead, he said something softer. "Because you made a choice. Choices have weight, even small ones." She didn't fully understand it yet, but she knew he wasn't just talking about the dance. He was talking about everything that came with it. The night moved forward, and Ava found herself standing taller. She talked to people she never would have approached before. She didn't hide in the corners anymore. She wasn't just Rowan's ex. She wasn't just someone standing alone. She was the woman who had danced with Cassian Vero, and unknowingly she had stepped into a story far bigger than she imagined. Rowan eventually left the bar without a word. Not because Ava said anything, not because Cassian threatened him, but because the silent message had already been sent. Cassian didn't look at him once. Power didn't need to. It spoke on its own. When the gala came to its soft end, the lights in the grand nebula hall dimmed slowly, like a sky turning from sunset to night. People began to leave in small groups, still whispering about the unexpected moment they had witnessed. Ava walked toward the exit, but Cassian was there before her, standing near the doorway. He didn't stop her, but their eyes met. "Thank you," Ava said, and she meant it. Cassian gave a small nod. "You don't owe me anything." "I know," she said softly, "but thank you anyway." He didn't reply, but his silence carried meaning. As Ava stepped outside into the cool artificial night of Celestia Prime, she looked up at the endless black sky filled with faraway stars. Something inside her had changed. She didn't know what the future would bring. She didn't know what Cassian truly meant to the world she had just walked into. But she knew one thing clearly. She was no longer the woman who avoided the dance floor. She was no longer afraid of Rowan's eyes. She had taken a step forward, and nothing would be the same again. Cassian watched her leave. He didn't follow. He didn't need to. Some connections don't need chains to be real. They just need a single moment to begin. And for Cassian Vero, the quiet storm of Celestia Prime, that single dance had been enough to change the course of many things, even if neither of them fully understood it yet.